Okay, so today we're very privileged to have Dato Munirah and Dato Paul Chan join us. And we're going to have a panel forum actually. So what's going to happen is basically we're going to focus on how to handle times of great uncertainty like these. And I'm going to throw some questions at them to get the best out of them, out of their expertise, out of their deep knowledge and their experience. So maybe what I'll do is, first of all, let me just quickly get Dato Munirah to introduce herself. So maybe in about a minute or so, tell us about your business and whatever you want to tell us in the introduction. So over to you, Dato Munirah.
Thanks, Peter. Once again, good afternoon, everyone. So this is Munirah, and actually I founded a company 16 years ago, which is called Brand International. But prior to that, I have a total of about 20 years of corporate experience. And my last assignment has been a global role, which was based out of the States. And then in that role, I was actually responsible for driving the global customer experience for the consumer business for the global bank. So I found my passion and also wanted to come home to Malaysia. And that's how I started my company, which is called Brand International. So what we basically do is we are very much we actually help clients to deliver their customer experience and business value through our capabilities, which is people as well as operational excellence. So today we have our clients includes very much very high-powered, high-growth internet companies and MNCs, and we serve markets which is primarily in, of course, Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, as well as in Australia. Since 2009, we have been achieving a CAGR growth of about 29%. And interestingly, last year, 2020, we actually had the most outstanding performance in terms of top and bottom line as well. So on an average, we perform about 15,000 customer interactions a day, which is equivalent to more than 5 million customer interactions. And when we talk about customer interactions, which means we actually handle customer calls through phones or sometimes or through live chats and emails. And we have a varied business diversified industries in which we support. So that's a little bit about myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dato Munirah. That's very impressive, having a fantastic year in 2020 despite all the challenges. So it's good to know that there are some industries that are still thriving. Excellent. Also, I think you also won the EY Women's Entrepreneur of the Year award, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah, in
so
2000.
Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So we'll come back to you in a little while. I'd like to now also hear a few words from Dato Paul, a man who needs no introduction. He's a leader in education and been around for a long time. One of the few academics who is also an entrepreneur. So let's hear a few words from Paul Chan. Dato Paul Chan.
Thanks, Andrew. I am an economist by training, and I spent about 21, 22 years in the academic world. I started very young at the age of 23. But around 1986, I was quite unhappy with the lack of opportunities for various people in Malaysia. So my wife and I borrowed 25,000 ringgit, and we had about 20, 25 students, 4 or 5 staff members. But over the years, it grew, and our mission is very simple: to help people succeed in life and to live a life of significance. We are very value-driven, 5 values: pride of achievement, sharing success, the courage to be compassionate, to be significant. I tried 6-7 businesses since I left the university, and I failed in all of them. Everyone, I lost money. So finally, I came back to education. Is ennobling. The ends are noble, the means are noble, and I have excellent colleagues. And one of the things I learned over these 36 years is about leadership, that we cannot have leadership unless we have quality followership. So this is the biggest lesson I've learned. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Dato Paul. So, well, as I said, no, just to frame up this discussion this afternoon, we are into MCO number 3. And we know that at this very hour, in fact, there is what do you call a confederation of all the SME associations and all the industry guys meeting to try to foster a common message, to the authorities, I guess you want to call it, to do something for the SME sector. So we are in very dire times and very tough times. But I'd like to hear your thoughts, both Munirah and Paul. So maybe starting with Munirah, maybe you could tell us, what are some of the challenges that you yourself face in your own business and how you have overcome them, and take it from there. So Munirah, let's hear from you.
Okay. Well, I guess my challenges can essentially be seen as two types. One, it's really business as usual when COVID did not hit any one of us. I could say that there are 3 growing pains for my business. Though I have been in the business for the last 16 years, we have proven ourselves to be very resilient. We survived the great financial crisis in 2008, the oil crisis in 2014, and of course, COVID in 2019. So one of the key things that was really finding a sustainable business model to keep the company having a continuous income, right? When I started the company, it was very much a consulting company. So we were doing customer experience consulting, and we were doing business transformation consulting work for organizations. And like in any consulting business, you find that the tenure of service engagement, it's always like 9 months, 12 months. But after that, there's no more project. There's no more revenue for the business. So that challenges us to really look at what else can the company do in order for us to have recurring income. And that's how our business has evolved from purely just a consulting firm. We went into the business process outsourcing outfit. And when we talk about business process outsourcing, typically our projects, once we close a deal, the project contract range is averaging 2 to 3 years. So I think that was the first thing that was very important for us, was really finding a sustainable business model to allow us to stay relevant. All right. And just like last year, when a lot of businesses were essentially hit by COVID, we continued to thrive. Simply because our revenues were booked for 2-3 years, and so long as we were able to deliver our service levels with our clients, we were in good shape. In fact, a lot of the clients out of Singapore, China, and Hong Kong was growing their business, especially in the e-commerce space, and we grew with them, and that's why we had outstanding performance last year. So that was the first thing that faced as a challenge. And the second key thing for me was really funding for growth. And I think all of us can kind of connect to this, right? Because, the more you grow, the more headache you have, especially when it comes to working capital and CapEx expenditure itself here. So it was very important for us for me, some of the lessons that I've learned when we talk about fundraising, it's really about, you need to have an extended network. from personal friends to making sure the bankers, going to various platforms like the ECF platforms, the P2P platforms, and talking to PEs and VCs all the time. So I think it's really important to build that network, but yet continuously delivering results and creating value for the company so that, these people will start knocking at your doors. So I think, it was a turnaround. Initially, it was very difficult for us to get funding. But once we were able to show results and the profitability came, it was much easier. So we don't have to really do a lot of work in terms of the fundraising part of it. And of course, the third, it's really the market access, right? With the lockdown, COVID came in, it was very difficult for us to kind of extend our services beyond Malaysia. So that's where, again, I leveraging on the existing network, going into smart partnerships was essentially very key for us to continue to grow and bring businesses. And we were able to close projects, not only in Malaysia, but we can actually close projects in Singapore and Hong Kong during the 2019 without having to actually see the clients. So I think that essentially was also very important as well. So I think those are some of the critical challenge for my business. I'll probably stop here for now, and probably Datuk Paul can share his wisdom as well.
Okay. Before that, let me just summarize. So what I'm hearing, Munirah, is the three things. First of all, is related to operational excellence, getting the business off the ground to a good start, strong operational performance and delivery of your deliverables to your customers and clients. Two, making sure that your cash flow is solid and always looking for funds and sources of funds, securing those funds so that you don't have to worry and all that. And I like your business model where you have recurring income. So once you secure a contract, you secure it for 2-3 years, so that your forward cash flow planning is a lot of taken care of. And the third one you talked about was collaboration, or what you use the term smart partnerships, So maybe when I come back to you, you can tell us a specific example of how you achieve a collaboration and a smart partnership, and how did that work? Okay.
Right.
So meanwhile, let me just turn over to Paul. Paul, if you could tell us maybe one or two anecdotes about the challenges that you face and the lessons that we can draw from there.
When we started in 1986, the context was totally different. The rules of the game have, of course, changed. Not only do we face increasing competition, but also substitutes, a lot of substitutes in the value chain. And of course, everything is globalized. At the same time, our business model is somewhat rigid. So with the accelerating changes, it's not easy to undo many things because we are very infrastructure heavy in many ways. So given this, and given the regulations keep changing, and sometimes they facilitate, sometimes they don't, we therefore have to respond very differently. Secondly, the customer psychographics has also changed. There are more substitutes for students or for them to choose. That means switching costs, switching from one university to another college and so on is very low for them because they can use credit transfer and so on. And the underlying change in technology also affects us, and we have to adopt new educational technologies, new investment, but above all, the change learning culture. The staff must be willing to adopt the new culture, and we have to eliminate whatever resistance they are. So there is always a tension between the short term of the bottom line, but our emphasis on quality and services for the students, the tension between the short and the long term. At this moment, like everybody else, our focus is on viability and how to build in the resilience for long-term sustainability. Over the years, I have developed my own framework. I wouldn't call it a model. I call it the ELM framework, ELM, Entrepreneurship, Leadership, and Management, because I noticed that for a startup, the E is very big. The L is somewhat different. The leadership is entrepreneurial leadership is somewhat different, and it's different from the other type of leadership. But now, after 36 years, we are a medium-sized company. There is a bureaucratic process that is built in, and that slows down what we do. So the ELM guides me how I should reconceive what we do. The E, for instance, the entrepreneur part is guided by what I call the 4 A's and 4 S's. Are things available? Are they accessible? Are they appropriate? Are they affordable? If not, then I make a judgment to go in or not to go in at the industry level, market level, product level, customer target level, partnership level, and so on. But these 4 A's are supported by the 4 S's, shall we say. Standards must be there all the time because we can't compromise standards. We are in tertiary education, and we also have international schools and so on. Education is somewhat different. It's very people intensive, and the quality of the staff must be consistently strong. So how do we therefore maintain standards and at the same time to scale up a business, to scale it up and to sustain it, and also to move like now with speed? That is very difficult. So we have to create our own way of handling the situation, very different from other businesses.
Okay.
So this is the way we have to respond and rejuvenate our model. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Paul, I'm going to just interject. So I like the framework you use, ELM, Entrepreneurship, Leadership, and Management. And I that brings to mind a lot of my conversations with my clients. So many of my clients are fantastic entrepreneurs, and they grow and grow, and they grow to a point where they realize that they don't have the right management skills within themselves. And it's very different skill sets, isn't it? The skill set of an entrepreneur, which is a very natural makeup of usually the person and their own personal traits, and the management skills, which is acquired and learned over years, usually in big corporations. And sometimes when we bring in management to an entrepreneurial organization, there's a bit of disruption there, and there's a bit of adjustment there. Maybe you can comment on that.
I think everything is about the culture of the organization, the culture, the talent pool in the context of the new definition of work, workplace, work requirements, and so on. Now you have to add in the technology. So this mix is very difficult to handle because human beings find it very difficult to unlearn, to relearn and learn new things. So the resistance is very strong. Right now, the pandemic creates a strong sense of urgency. But for many salaried people and maybe in the academic culture, the concept of time is very different. So there may be a lack of urgency. To me, in running a business, and I just realized it's not about returns on capital or whatever. It's basically return on time. Our life is very brief. We probably have 15, 20 years of our life as a founder. And we really have to maximize returns on time. And return on excellence. A very loose word, excellence, meaning we really have to have peak performance to be differentiated from the rest. So to pull all ourselves from being stagnated, we have to look for people who have the willingness to do things, to be with you, and the enthusiasm to drive the willingness. But do they have the willpower to do it? That's quite different. You are willing, but you don't have the willpower. You don't have the will to make it successful. So the energy part of behind the willpower must be there. Willingness, enthusiasm. Willpower, the energy behind it. Because no human being can drive a change without quality followers. Followership defines leadership. And now we need a very different type of leadership.
Okay. Yeah. So in terms of crisis, right? Collaboration is extremely important, right? So when we have all the limitations of lockdown and the market just evaporates or changes and big disruptions, we need to generate new revenue, new streams of revenue. So going back to Munirah, you were talking about collaboration, strategic, smart partnerships. Can you tell us maybe share a specific example of how we can generate new revenue?
Yeah. So our business has always been in the people business, right? It is always about helping our clients to deliver customer experience, all right? And typically what we do is we hired people who have the capabilities to offer good communication, customer service skills, to interact with our clients' customers, right? So, but we begin to realize that if we depend just purely on people, it's going to be very challenging for us to scale the business because talent is getting it's a rare gem at this point. And because we are servicing not just local markets, we are servicing a market which is regional as well as the global market. Language becomes a very, very important component, especially English language and the ability to speak Mandarin are some of the key criteria for us to onboard any employees into the organization. So what essentially we had to do is to start thinking of ways of how we can scale our business, and not be too dependent on the people component. And that's where we started to explore working on the digital workforce. So when we talk about the digital workforce, what it really means, it's engaging in using robotics, using AIs, and bringing all this into the fold of our service offerings. So when we talk about bringing technology into the forefront so that we become a more digital enabled organization, we have two probable ways of doing it. One is we start from ground zero. We hire IT people and start developing our solutions for ourselves. Or we could actually work with people who already have the platforms. All right, people who are already in the business. And that time we were also looking at, the key is like what Datuk Paul was saying, speed to market is very important. So the best way to do this, obviously, it's to go into a partnership with people who is able to offer a service which we do not have, but it's complementing the services that we offer. And not only complementing, but it enhances our whole value proposition to our customers. So that's really how we went into that smart partnership. All right, it's just not about partnering with whoever.
Munirah, could you share with us?
Yeah.
How did you engage this strategic partner? I mean, how was it initiated, and how did you get the deal, and how did it help each other? Was it a mutual benefit?
So Yeah, it's I always go back to that network, which is very important. I speak in a lot of webinars, a lot of conferences, you know, and you get yourself in to become a thought leader in what you do, and as such, you get to know a lot of people, right? And it is through all this network, through it could be friends introduction. That's how we kind of get connected. And interestingly, technology folks today always look for business consultants like us to partner with them, because they now recognize that they cannot sell solutions, technology. They can't sell technology. They have to sell the business solution. So we become the extended arm of their whole value proposition when they go and see the client. So it's like both comes into a win-win situation.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win collaboration, and you attract them through your exposure through all the various conferences and seminars and talks that you give. Huh? Excellent. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
So I'd like to go back to Dato Paul's point about leadership in these times of crisis. No, so we know that these are very challenging times, and these are times that causes a great deal of anxiety and worry and even depression and fear. No. So we hear of many cases of mental depression and suicide rates, and counseling people like what do you call the befrienders getting endless calls and all that. So Dato, maybe you could tell us what do you think are some key things to keep in mind in terms of keeping your leadership at the forefront of your company.
I think the most important emphasis is life preservation and well-being and the welfare of the staff and students. I hate to use the word triage, T-R-I-A-G. All of us are in the same situation. Our first duty was to protect the jobs of people, the incomes, because we are very mindful that this is very important. And in particular, so many of my people have suffered so loyally, dutifully over the last 30 over years. Then, of course, we cannot ignore our quality support for students. And therefore, we invest very heavily to retrain, to upskill, reskill our staff because of the new teaching learning requirements. But by chance, just before the pandemic started, we already initiated what we call the 4R transformation. The first R is to reframe our vision and direction. The second R is to revitalize our new value proposition for the students, or customers, or families and communities. And of course, to restructure the process for efficiency, and definitely to revitalize our culture. You see, one of the insights that I learned about business, and I'm a very small time business, is this, that most businesses fail because we have to incur very high costs before we get a customer. And this is the killer. So we have to look for a business where we are paid before we incur any cost. That is important. Imagine we have 8 billion people in the world. So as far as the education industry, if you want to call it an industry, is concerned, we do not have to worry about demand and future demand. As long as there's a human being, he needs to be educated and trained and retrained. But how come it is so challenging to create an education business? It is because it is totally people intensive. So the business model is very difficult to construct. So one lesson I learned is, if possible, do a business that involves minimal people in your company. Because when a business is very people intensive, you spend a lot of time
Managing them.
and you you don't have time to look after your strategy and so on. You see, so the execution part becomes very slow and very costly. A lecturer can be very happy in the morning and may not be very happy in the afternoon. You know, it's not like a machine. I can switch in on and off and so on. So in view of all these, all those who are in the education sector have this challenge, and therefore we have to construct a model where we have to resolve some of these matters. But now the academics in all the universities have to also acquire a business sense, the understanding of how to make sense, sense, response, mindset. So we cannot work in the old world anymore. So now the tension is to deliver quality products, and at the same time to look after the bottom line. There's always this tension there.
Yeah. So I guess definitely last year, 2020. I'm not sure about this year. There was a big disruption in the education industry, right? Because it's like people can't travel. Foreign students, we can't have intakes. The what do you call the SPM exams and what do you call the STP exams are all delayed, so intakes are affected. So that has a big impact on your business, right?
You see, in general, the pandemic has disrupted totally the production, distribution, and consumption. These three words are the core of any economy. So when international students cannot come to Malaysia, and there are regulations and all sorts of things, allowing, not allowing, but not just the regulations in Malaysia, but the regulations in every other country. So even if we allow them to come back, it does not mean their native countries will allow them to come back. Yes, so the alignment is very tough for us.
Yes, yes.
So however brilliant your strategies are, you're at the mercy of the uncontrollable forces.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's the problem.
Yeah. So I guess one of your challenges, Paul, would be also to think of ways to generate alternative revenue streams, right? So
yes,
the main business is affected, then you got to do the alternative and new revenue streams. And that could be new programs or whatever, taking advantage of the big shift to the digital learning platforms and all that, no? So maybe you could share one or two things that you guys have done at Help University to.
I think the first thing is to learn cost management as we try to shave off some of the cost items. We should not damage our investment in our talent pool. That is very important. The second part is to learn the new technology of virtual learning and teaching. There are limitations to this because we may be very good, but the students and the families and the governing regulations in the other countries may or may not allow. So these are some of the short-term issues. So we have to therefore move into other revenue streams, as you say. But we are not going to start the property insurance or whatever, because that's not our competency.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we are still in the same area of education and training. But if you notice, there are so many people coming in the training arena.
Yes.
So our strengths would be, we are a university. We can create certain credibility and professional acceptance that some of them cannot. So we will try to have a customer collaboration and alliance collaboration, as some of our friends mentioned just now. How to construct a strategic platform that we can play a critical role in the value chain, because
Yeah.
education has a very long and broad value chain.
Yes.
From
Paul, I noticed that one of the things you guys have done recently is to launch a series of micro-credential programs for people, in the workforce want to upskill themselves and reskill themselves. Is that one of the central pillars of your new revenue generation?
Yes, definitely. Thanks so much for reminding me. In fact, after this forum, I would like to meet all of you separately and see, because I noticed so many brilliant people here doing things that we can coalesce and synthesize, and professionalize them through certificates like the micro credentials and the certification process. So we can work together, because I'm a university and some of you have the intellectual properties. I heard many of you very strong in e-commerce, so blockchain, whatever, and so on. So we have a master in data science, a bachelor in data analytics, a master in applied business analytics, a bachelor in business analytics. So many of the things that were mentioned earlier in e-commerce or blockchain, etc., are components of what we do. So, we would like to meet all of you separately again, on the business part later.
All right. So I want to now change gears a bit and go and talk about going forward, what can we do and what do we do? But before that, just want to remind everyone, if you got questions for our learned speakers here, please type them into the chat box and we'll be opening for questions in about 5-10 minutes. So going forward, this is where we are now in a state of, I don't know what you call it, so I call it hyper VUCA, VUCA was a term invented a few years ago, volatility, uncertainty, chaos, and whatever the A is.
Ambiguity.
Yeah. Ambiguity. But this is hyper VUCA, So every day could be different, every week could be different, 1 week you could have 3 or 4 or 5 dramas, whether it's the palace drama or whether it's a vaccine drama or whether it's a mutation drama, whatever it is. So going forward, as we tackle these times, because I don't think this pandemic is going to go away anytime soon. Easily, it will take us into next year. The Singapore government has already prepared for 2022, 2023 kind of situation, So I just want to ask you guys, let's start with Dato Munirah. Going forward, how do you see things and what would be your advice going forward? What would you advise to our group of people here?
Well, I would think that the outlook essentially is not favorable. As mentioned just now, I was also sitting in the industry unite, comprising of 100 NGOs, and we were talking about the economic climate of Malaysia. Certainly, it does have impact on the economic health as well as the social impact for the country. Unless we speed up our vaccination process and opening up the economy and stuff like that. So certainly it has, in a way, the impact of COVID has in a way changed the customer's behavior. And expectations has obviously increased in as far as customers' behaviors are concerned, because now we're getting more and more customers who are now going online channels. All right, so there is certainly a need for businesses to go from offline to online, and I think that's very important and that's very critical in order for you to stay relevant. So I think that's one of the key trends, and we have always said that digital transformation used to be a smart strategy. Now it is a survival strategy. So if you are not online, if you're not in the digital space, it's very difficult for you to have a sustainable business model. So I guess that's the first thing that one needs to do. It's to be able to pivot your business so that you can reach out to your consumers, who are now looking at touchless shopping and contactless payments. So you need to kind of think about ways of how you're going to manage this whole the whole entire business model. And I would also think what is really important is that you need to do your scenario planning as well, and start thinking about all the what if scenarios. It's very important. You need to plan and with that mindset that no plan survives day one, because today SOP says this, tomorrow the flip-flop SOP says something else. So it has a lot of operational disruptions to a lot of people. All right, and the worst thing is that this has a major impact on your people. So the third key thing I would say is that while we are trying to manage our business and trying to get our business afloat, do not forget the people and humanize your approach to ensure that you help people to adapt to this new norm. It's very important. And I think Datuk Paul was also mentioning that the key is really about having a sustainable transformational culture, a culture of agility, to make sure that your people are well prepared for all the adversities that is ahead of us, because there's just so much of uncertainty. Nobody knows what's ahead of us. But the more agile your team is, then it allows you to be able to pivot fast when you are actually faced with roadblocks. And that requires transformational leadership. And that's really important for anyone who is now in the driver's seat. All right, you need to you cannot be a transactional leader anymore. You need to be transformational. And what I mean by transformation is to help people to adapt to change, and focus on what's ahead rather than being stuck in your current situation.
Okay, very good.
Yeah,
that's good. So yeah, I want to just add on to your point about scenario planning, no? So a lot of people tell me, Peter, what's the point of planning? Even a 90-day plan, you'll throw it out of the window in 9 days. Don't talk about 90 days, no? But I want to tell people that there is value in still doing scenario planning, because planning is not about the piece of paper or document that you come up with at the end of the day. It's about going through the thinking process, assessing the situation so that you're better prepared. And even if you can't prepare for the unknown, the one situation that you didn't think of, at least you thought about the other 29 that are possibility to happen. So I would definitely support scenario planning. And the other thing you said was make sure you're in the digital space. Because in this age, if you're not in the digital space, you're really going to be left far behind. And if you're already in the digital space, I suggest we all ramp up your presence in the digital space. So being in the digital space is not good enough. You got to ramp it up, because that's where all the action is going to be. And on leadership and humanizing the human touch, right? My view is it's extremely important. You're right, no, and your team has to be agile, and all this has to be built into your culture, your communication, and most importantly, your own values, no, or what I call practicing the virtues of leadership, which we know is courage, prudence, fortitude, justice, magnanimity, and humility. Humility meaning the ability to serve others, no, not to put yourself down, but the humility to serve, to be a servant. Okay. So turning to Paul now, I'd like to also pick your brains on the same question of what do we do going forward, and particularly if you could address the smaller, medium-sized businesses, no? So the bigger organizations have got more leeway, they've got more resources, they've got more structure and all that, and probably they got more capital reserves and all that. But for the smaller and the small, medium-sized businesses going forward, Paul, what would be your words of advice and suggestions to them?
Okay, I want to reinterpret the VUCA somewhat differently.
Okay.
VUCA, I look at V as in visualizing,
Okay.
and U as in unity of thinking and doing. thinking and doing, and the C as in clarity of the mind. And of course, the A is to actualize, meaning action with results. It is difficult to advise anybody right now about what to do, honestly, because a crisis is a very severe disruption, and all of us generally agree that it is difficult to reverse the situation now. At best, maybe some improvements. But how we respond at the personal and at the particular business level is relative to the life cycle of the human being. If you're 25, if you're older, it's different. I'm 78, so I'll respond very differently. So the life cycle of the founder is important, and also the life cycle of the organization, and the life cycle of the product or products and services. All these therefore become important. I mean, there are some general recommendations that we can always say we need to begin with to create a new mindset competency, a certain way of looking at the world. For instance, there's no choice but to accept that we have to coexist with the virus. So my mentor is a gentleman who is visually impaired, and his wife also is impaired. But 27 years ago, his wife gave birth to a daughter, and the daughter was born paralyzed. So now at the age of 27, she could only move the eyes. He's my mentor. Why do I choose him to be my mentor? We are very close. It's because he reminded me one day when I said I have problems here and there. He said, Paul, tell your colleagues and staff they have no right to complain. Only he has a right. So whenever I have problems, I think of this gentleman and said, I'm so blessed, compared to him. So right now is an attitude of the mind. It's not about dollars and cents, because we have to live our lives, our own personal life, the people in the family, and in my case, grandchildren, like all of you, and so on. So if we over focus on the business and forget to live our lives, then that is also a wrong definition of our values. We only have so many years to live, So when we talk about leadership, do not over focus on the business leadership. There are things that we can do, and there are certain things we have to accept, and that's it. So given that we cannot do certain things, perhaps we should, of course, lower our vision and wait for an opportunity to recover as we learn, as you all said, digital skills. And don't forget to learn economics, because economic logic is very powerful. I'm an economist and I know it. And also to reduce, first eliminate, reduce, innovate, and create value. Look at the company. What can you eliminate? What can we reduce that are unwanted? And forget some of the very ambitious long-term ideas for the moment. I mean, this may sound silly, but not necessarily, because however resourceful we are, if people do not give you some money to pay your salary, and that's it, full stop. You see, so we must be totally realistic, But it doesn't mean if we don't do well in life, we cannot be a happy person. So don't let the lack of the relative success affect the way we live our life. Then that's wrong. Because to me, the biggest project that I'm given in this world is how to manage my life, not how to manage a business. my life is finite, you know.
Yes, yes.
So you see, now when we started, it was 3 o'clock, 3:30. Now it's 2 hours gone. We cannot get back the 2 hours. So
Yep,
I would
you're right.
say, live our life well, be happy.
Yes, yes. Okay. So with that, thank you very much, both of you, Datuk Paul and Dato
Thank
Munirah.
you.
And before we let
Thank
you
you.
go, we've got a bunch of questions, a whole bunch of questions. Oh yeah, there's a remark here that says time flies when we're having fun. So it's been 2 hours, but it's gone up very fast. So I've got a few questions here. I'll just read them out and we can all answer them, no? Let me see. Let's start with this question about your micro. So there's a question about your micro credentials, Paul.
Yes.
I can find it. Hang on. Yeah, so William is asking, Dato Paul, micro credential, do you need a separate license for this? Not sure why he's asking for a license, maybe he wants to be a competitor.
Yes, I am not very sure the regulation of creating these type of certificates. Definitely anyone can create a certificate, but if the certificate is to be used for recognition, that means for credit transfer, then the Ministry of Higher Education and the MQA must approve. But otherwise, anyone can create a certificate. You see, for example, Microsoft has a lot of training certificates, not
Yes,
necessarily recognized by the government, but recognized, accepted by industries and
yes,
professional bodies.
yes.
So I will be very pleased to discuss the micro credential in another session. I
Yep.
see lots of opportunities here. You
Yes,
see, for example, we can create our own micro credentials by unbundling our degrees or diplomas and so on. But so this is one vertical. Another vertical is I don't have the existing degrees, etc., to unbundle. I create new ones. But you also have some certificates. So am I willing to accept yours to be recognized, to get recognition for credit transfer? So we can work out all these things. Yeah.
okay.
So this is a great opportunity here.
All right. Okay. There's another question related to this, which I will suggest that Evelyn, maybe you take this up offline with Dato. She's asking whether you could do a master's of communications in reputation management and crisis communications. There's another question here asking you to elaborate on the experience of quality followership. So you mentioned quality followership.
You see, leadership is a very elusive idea. Everyone wants to be a leader. You seldom see a book on followers, you know. Probably there are only 2 titles as far as I know. So people may think to be a follower means, of course, they are not a leader. Okay, leadership is somewhat different from being called a leader, which may be associated by or with a title called CEO, Prime Minister, and so on. Leadership is quite different. Every one of us has leadership. Is at what level to solve what problems. Even a tea lady or a driver has his or her type of leadership, but probably she cannot manage 1 billion to invest in the stock market or something. But there's quite a different type of leadership. Some are great CEOs, but they're very bad parents. So parenting leadership is very important too. So when we say quality followership, it just means this. If we have individuals or colleagues or staff not sharing our vision and our values, they may be sabotaging what we do intentionally or unintentionally. But when the followers understand us, they really die for us. But nobody will die with us, we know. But they will really give you their time, which is the most valuable resource you can ever get from a human being. But some people withhold their time by reluctantly doing something you ask them to do.
Yes.
So they're not willing to give more. You pay me that, I just do.
Yes.
So the followership of quality is, I know the end game, our destination. Above all, we share the destiny together.
Yes. Yes.
And
Mm.
followership is based on one word: trust. Trust is the basis of relationships.
Yes.
Relationships build organization
Yes.
and society and our government.
Mm.
If there is not trust between the politicians and the people,
Yeah.
it does not work, full stop.
Yeah.
People must understand trust and relationship.
Yes. Yes.
We are followers, but we are providing either bad or good followership.
Yes. Yes. So some of you know that I teach a program called Virtuous Leadership, and that's precisely what I guess encapsulates what Paul is saying. So leadership is based on character, and character is formed through virtues. Virtues are good moral habits, like what I mentioned just now: prudence, courage, justice, self-control or self-mastery, magnanimity, and humility. So when you have good leadership, you build a lot of trust. When you have a lot of trust, you get people to follow you. If you don't have trust, then you're charging ahead, and then when you look back, where's everybody here? So that trust factor is very, very important. Okay, moving along, there's a question here from Munirah, which I think you have partly answered, but maybe you'd like to elaborate, no? So Evelyn is asking, what's your view on the growth of hybrid customer experience? And she thinks the trend she notices is no longer just about telephony, but an integrated customer service via chatbots, email, WhatsApp, and so on and so forth, social media and so on. So maybe you can elaborate a bit on that, Munirah?
Yes, certainly that's a correct observation. I did mention that every day we process about 15,000 customer interactions, right, in my company, and of which actually 80% of this are actually the non-voice channel, which means it's we are using a lot of live chats, chatbots, Facebook and all that to respond to customer inquiries and all that. So certainly the trend is moving towards that direction. And my response would be really that you need to be able to have that omni-channel presence in order for you to conduct your business, because your customers are very different. All right. So if you have the people who are in the baby boomers, essentially they love to just pick up the phone and talk to someone. But if you looked at the millennials today, they just like to do the chats or just self-help. So your ability to know your customer's preference is very important. You will know what is your customer, using analytics to help you to analyze your customer segment, and then knowing that particular segment, what is their preferences in terms of how they want to do business with you, right? So the key is really having that availability of all these channels, and you're giving them an option to choose how they want to interact with you. So that's a correct observation. And any organization who wants to go into the digital platform, you need to have that ready. And of course, it's just not about having that platform, but I also mentioned that you need to manage it as well. There's no point writing an email, but it takes 5-7 days before it gets replied. Or the reply is a robotic reply, and it's not answering a question that your customers wants in this case here. So you need to be able to also manage those channels effectively. So I think that's the reasons why a lot of startup, a lot of SMEs, because they want to focus on their business, they would you may want to consider outsourcing this function to outsourcing parties like ourselves, all right? Because we are very invested in the technology, we have the know-how, we can help you to, bring your service into the market faster than you doing it yourself. So that's the advantage of the outsourcing model. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Mhm.
There's one last question here, and Ming wants to know, Paul, how do you stay so mentally agile at your age? What's your secret? She's asking, even though she's probably only half your age.
Yeah, I'm 70. Well, my wife doesn't complain very much. So I have peace. No, more seriously, I think I'm a Christian, but I practice Buddhist philosophy. I think the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Paths are very useful. It has nothing to do with God or religion. It's just understanding life in a big context, meaning understanding sufferings. The moment we were born until we die, there are sufferings. Because we age, we have diseases and so on. Then there are causes of suffering. Causes of suffering come from our expectations, attachments to wealth, titles, power, influence, and cravings. We crave for a lot of things. And this comes from all the physical sensations, because we can see things, we can taste things, we can feel things, and so on and so on. These are the sources of our suffering. So is there a cure for all this? Yes, there is a cure. And this is called the Eightfold Path. So right speech, say the right thing, be kind, say kindness. Right action, do the right thing. Right livelihood, don't cheat. No human trafficking. Right effort, and then of course mindfulness and concentration. So this helps the mind to be very calm, very calm. The most important thing is very simple. 2 points of time. Before we sleep, we thank God or nature or whatever for whatever we have been given the day. And next morning, when we get up, when we open our eyes, hey, we are alive, we're given another 24 hours. So to me, then the rest is totally irrelevant. And many years ago, I worked out my life. I said, the only ultimate thing is I can't avoid, evade, escape is death. So I accept it. And I work backward. I work backward, what I should do, what I should not do. So whatever happens, the mind is very calm, because the mind affects you all the time. Every other moment you have agitation, full of fears and worries, and angst, anxieties. No peace. Cannot even enjoy something. You switch on the TV, we like to suffer, want to listen to all the bad news about the COVID and so on and so on. You see, we are masochists, torturing ourselves for no reason, sending to each other all the bad news instead of having some classical music or whatever that makes us happy. So we threw away every hour of the day. Like today is gone already. You say, what have we achieved? Yes, among us we share something. I hope it's meaningful. So I feel that whatever we do here, and a bit of, I do exercise, I do a lot of stretching, I play badminton, I play basketball. No, I don't mean going there to play. I just pretend to do like this. So I do stretching. I pretend to play. So you stretch. That's all I do, all stretching. I do all the stretching. As I was talking to you all, I stretch my toes, etc., etc. So we can do many things to calm our body, but to stretch our physical body. And do not forget, our troubles come from the joints, and here, all the joints. So I told myself and my wife, there are some things I will never do. Don't ask me to climb even 1 foot to take something from a carpet. Because at our age, the moment I fall, if something happens, there's habis. I'm not a 25-year-old person, you know. You see, so there are certain things we should not do at what age and so on and so on. Above all, I enjoy eating. I eat a lot of pork. I don't have a diet. I love the fat.
Okay, so that's the secret. Eat more pork. Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. So just on that note about health and well-being and self-care, I have a little formula that maybe I just want to wrap up and share with you all. It's EARN. So it's very easy to understand and to remember. Earn your health. The E stands for exercise, like Paul demonstrated, no, whether you're throwing basketballs over your head in the air or whatever yoga or whatever, no. The A stands for attitude, which is all about mindset, keeping calm, staying positive, staying agile, and all the rest of it. The R is for rest, which we very often underestimate, no? You know, you can take all the ginger and all the turmeric and all the garlic and all that and whatever else, but I was told by a medical expert, if you don't have enough sleep, your toxins are not going to get discharged. Drinking 2 gallons of water is not going to help you. You need to sleep. So don't underestimate sleep. So rest. The R is for rest. And the N is for nutrition. And nutrition is not eating. Nutrition is eating pork. so nutrition means you take the right food. Yeah, you don't go and take char kway teow every night and all that, no? You can take, but don't take every night, lah. No, you know what I mean? Or don't take 2 plates at one time. So nutrition means eating correctly, eating right, and includes drinking enough fluids and, you know, eating fruits, all the rest of it. So EARN yourself to good health and self-care. So with that, I'd like to thank you all very much for this, especially Datuk Paul and Dato Munirah. And I'd like to call, we actually have a little token of appreciation. Normally, if we are live, we will present it to you, but it's a little certificate of appreciation, which I'm not sure what the organizing team is, how are we going to do this. But Susie, are you there? How are we going to do this?
Thank you so much.
Ah, yes. Wonderful. So Bob, if we can capture this, it'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So when the lockdown is over, when we finally have a physical meeting, we'll find a way to present this to you. But in the meantime, we'll send you a soft copy. So really want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, you know, Dato Munirah and Dato Paul, for your excellent and very generous sharing with us today. I'm sure every one of us has learned a lot. And well, I really want to suggest that we practice what we have learned and go forth, and all the best. So till next time, thank you very much.